into the ring right now, ladies and gentlemen, out of Mound, Minnesota, at 218 pounds, he is the great Gagne.
Hey, it's Dominic D'Angelo. It is Brass Ring Media. It is also Four Horsemen Network.com, and we are live, unless you're tuning in later. But I'm here. It is Straight Talk with the boss. Who's the boss? That is Magnum TA. How are you, Magnum?
I'm doing great. How are you, Dominic?
I'm hanging in there. Another day in paradise. It's a Thursday. And we also have the facilitator here as well. That is Mr. Greg Gagne. Greg, how are you?
Thank God I got the boss. I got two of them.
You do have two of them.
TA and my girlfriend. She's out getting her toes done now. I threw her out of the house.
Well, the boss.
She wanted to get away from me. I was not in a real good mood today.
You're going to be future endeavored, Greg. That's what's going to happen.
I'm going to blast everybody.
Oh, geez. Well, it's good to have everybody back. Last week it was just, or 2 weeks ago it was just Greg and I, and we covered some good ground on that one. Talked a little bit about Triple H and the future of what might be held for him. But it's good to have you back, Magnum. And what's been on your wrestling mind lately? Anything new?
You know, I watched. I watched a little bit of the WWE product from Monday night last night, and it's really hard for them, I think, to still try to go back and recreate that intensity they had when Roman Reigns was, so hot with the bloodline and the feud and the culmination of him having had the championship forever and Cody and the chase, and they just have not been able to latch on to something of that magnitude, one single piece. And even the stuff with John Cena, though I totally admit it's the best use of John Cena. I believe that they could be capitalizing on in this, limited window of time that they've got.
Yeah.
They just haven't been able to get that one guy super, super hot with that, laser focus of everyone, wanting to see what happens with them. And, I think there were some missteps, some miscues along the way, but, that's armchair quarterbacking. It was going to be a tough thing to follow any way they turned it. But it's proven me right, because they've not been able to utilize Roman to any great capacity since he's come back. And, I'm glad to see Gunther back, in his familiar role. And, look at the, his upcoming match with Goldberg on the Saturday night main event. And I'm hoping, and I'm sure it will be, that will be something where, Bill and his kind of giving back to the business will elevate Gunther, in that exchange. So it's an interesting time, all the way around.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's a good point too about having a hot star at the moment. There's some stars, but it doesn't feel to the level that kind of what you were saying as, Roman Reigns and that momentum that was picking up with Bloodline way back in the day, even too. Greg, do you kind of agree with that assessment too, that Magnum said?
Oh, I definitely do. I watched last night from start to beginning, because it was from Green Bay, one of our hot towns. Actually, going back in time, we used to sell out that Green Bay Arena for 3 years straight. People would buy tickets. We'd go on Sunday nights. They'd already sell out for the next card, not even knowing what was coming up. And when I was watching it last night, I didn't get the feel that the Green Bay fans used to give us. I mean, it was electrifying, and they weren't getting it out of a lot of the matches last night. I felt really bad for AJ Styles in the match he had with McDonough. They had a heck of a match, but the people didn't really react to it till the end of it. And it felt like there wasn't any momentum all the way through that night until they got to that big 4 four-way with the Uso and Sheamus, Green, and Rusev, and that was a hell of a match. And they really got the crowd back the way the Green Bay crowds used to react. And then with everybody else coming out there, from Sammy to Penta to Breaker to Rollins and Cody, it left them with a really good taste at the end of the night. But the rest of it was just there for me.
Yeah. There were some bright spots I took away from Raw in certain ways, but and the crowd, I think it did peak at certain moments in time. But overall, there was some times too where it did kind of taper off, and it just felt, like we're in the dog days of summer, even though we're in the early days of summer.
Yeah. Right. Well, the Gunther interview with Goldberg, that got great response.
Yes.
Bailey and Becky, they got good response from the people, but I think they went too long.
I agree. Yep. I agree with
that. They just went on and on and on. And poor Liz Morgan, she took a horrible bump. Did you see that, TA?
Yeah. Did you catch that?
Yeah. It sounds like she dislocated her shoulder. And
elbow.
It was just a forward bump. It wasn't an unusual bump or anything.
No.
But obviously, that just shows you something you've probably done hundreds of times before. If everything's not just right, something can go wrong. And she's probably going to be out for a good number of weeks, getting that back strong again. So,
yeah, I think it's been reported that she's out for a timetable of about 16 weeks. So
I would imagine, because she dislocated both her shoulder and her elbow.
Her elbow too?
Wow.
Yeah,
that's what they said last night.
Holy smokes!
Yeah.
Man. That's
It's
tough.
going to be a tough one. She's a great interviewer, and she's hurt in the ring.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think, to me, and this is going to probably sound strange to the new generation of superstar athlete, but I think the sheer fact that even though they, they're strong and they're fast and they're this and they're that and the other, there's just no substitute for the kind of ring ready body you have when you work 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
And going to the gym or going down and working out in the ring and doing stuff, and you're taking a pause and whatever, there's something about that performing live and repetitively over and over and over again that gives you like a muscle memory, a way of being used to taking certain things and your body being in certain positions and whatnot. It's really, I think, difficult to duplicate. And I think it, maybe potentially, and I'm not saying this in Liv's case, but I'm saying in general, the athletes just don't have that marathon type endurance and I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but just the ruggedness that it takes to repetitively go on these long tours and pound your body. I mean, Greg's group got a break in the summertime, that he's told us about so many times, but literally, over my 7-year span in the ring, I don't think I ever had a year I worked less than 330 times.
Wow. Yeah.
Never. And
even your body stays hard then, and you get away to take a 6-week vacation. Well, you come back and that body just isn't ready to take the physicality that you have in the ring. And TA hit it right on the nose. When you're going all the time, you'll get a few injuries, but you can kind of go right through them. How many? Okay, TA. Let's say in a month where you got a program going with Flair, how many hour draws did you do?
We did 16 or 18 in 1 month.
Holy smokes!
And that's a lot. And Ricky Morton actually surpassed what Rick and I did, because Ricky went all the way around the loop with them doing hours and then came back and did 90 minutes.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, and so he was, I was a juggernaut there during my era and in my time, but he even surpassed the amount of ring time that I share with Rick. But it's again back to the the mentality of you had to play hurt, you had to recoup as quickly as possible. I mean, I wasn't even on top in Florida. I was in the, working the middle of the cars, and I got orthoscopic surgery on my knee, and was back in the ring 2 weeks later. And and they told me, they said, well, Kerry had his done, and he was back in in 10 days or whatever. So if somebody had set a precedence that it could be done, then by God, he's not going to be tougher than me. that was that was the mindset. And
Funny you should say that. I had the same thing.
Really?
Yep, same thing. 2 weeks back in the ring.
Now, Kerry, you're referring to Kerry Von Erich, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Wow. Holy smokes.
But that's that's the way we were programmed. That's what your body's programmed. And what do they do? Just the weekends now and Monday and Tuesday?
Basically, because they've gotten rid of so many live events, they don't travel around. So it's just they do Raw, the Raw tapings. Maybe once in a while there's a live event that they hit, but that's it. Yeah, any kind of training in the ring comes outside now. Whether they're working at a Natty's Dungeon or something like that, but yeah, I don't know how much they get otherwise outside of what you see on television now. It's pretty wild to think that too. Yeah. And man, yeah,
especially from the era we came from.
Right. And I'm curious too, though, like, I mean, even though they're getting hurt a little bit more often, is this good long-term because they're taking less bumps in general too at the same time? Or do you think it might not matter in the grand scheme of it all, depending on they're still taking bumps and it's still hurting?
Goofy stuff though.
Yeah.
They're putting their bodies on line every time. They're flying over doing those flips over the top rope and landing on their opponent outside.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't hit the opponent right, you're going to hit that floor head on.
Well, what's the deal with the cameraman or whatever from AEW?
Gosh.
They got clipped during an event, and this, they're talking about lawsuits and everything else. What do you know anything about that?
So, yes, apparently the John Moxley, it was during a cage match here. I'm looking it up right now. The cameraman is suing John Moxley or AEW, I believe, for going off script. According to a report by Sports Illustrated, the cameraman is seeking compensation from Moxley over an injury he says occurred when the wrestler shoved him to the ground, an act he said was not part of the planned script. AEW has also been named in the lawsuit. So he's suing Moxley, then, my mistake. Filed by Dispenza, a veteran wrestling and entertainment production crew member who says he's been working with the company on a contract basis since its inception in 2019. In a civil lawsuit, Dispenza accuses both AEW and Moxley of varying degrees of negligence and accuses the wrestler specifically of civil assault and battery stemming from a live broadcast. He claims he was operating a camera during the May 10th, 2023 episode of Dynamite, and I'm just trying to see. The cameraman says it was not scripted part or of the planned storyline. So, yes.
Did you see the bump? Did you see the bump he took?
I saw the bump. The bump it does not look that bad. I mean,
no, it doesn't. But for a non-wrestler, it's a bad one.
But for him to put his hands on a cameraman, I mean, we wouldn't have ever done that even back in the day of all our crazy.
Right.
Never. You would never do that. So that's I would have to know what rhyme and reason was going through somebody's head to think that was a good idea.
It looks like
I guess the same people that would take a bat and stick nails in somebody. Right?
That might be it.
Might be. Never mind. I just answered my own question. I got it. I got it now.
It's a fair point.
You just can't fix stupid. You just can't fix it.
No.
It's a shame. Oh, man. I know, because it's just like, I mean, it's one thing if like a fan gets involved and gets physical, then you got to protect yourself and stuff like that. But I mean,
the cameraman.
All the cameraman did, he was looking at him like that. Oh, bam. I think the guy hit the back of his head when he hit the floor, though.
Oh, maybe that's it.
Like to me, and that probably shook him up pretty good.
Oh, man.
But I don't know what in the world. What I mean, all the guy did was come up towards him. It was ridiculous. You don't put your hands on somebody like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's one thing if you're a plant and you're expecting that to happen and you can take a bump like
some
that.
guy coming at you with a knife, then you're gonna
right. Yeah, that's another aspect of it all. But that's not the bad aspect of it. Oh boy. Did you catch any Magnum of When Worlds Collide, or I mean, what happened last night on Dynamite? There was at CMLL and at the Arena Mexico thing. Pretty good spectacle.
I haven't got to catch up on any of that yet, but I've.
What have you been doing?
So you're talking about CMLL and AEW?
That was last night, and then NXT and or WWE had the When Worlds Collide, the AAA show in Los Angeles.
TA, you mean you can't watch this stuff? And you got 2 jobs going, and you don't have time to watch this stuff?
He's the boss of many aspects.
He's nice.
Yeah.
He's getting hot. I
Uh-oh.
got to turn it up a little bit.
What else was I gonna? Oh, yeah. Let's go back to Goldberg real quick. He obviously shows up, gets a humongous reaction, and
That's it. I mean, he's still over.
He's still over. It's still over. It's
unbelievable.
Wild. It's wild. And so I love this promo. It was only like a 90-second promo, but it was Goldberg. And that's kind of all you need. It was almost like a lesson that a lot of current wrestlers could take about it. Like, hey,
have you heard of the podcast Busted Open?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Dave of course. Dave, did he go off on that? How can a guy get a title match like Goldberg come out of retirement and get a title match? It makes no sense. And he went on and on. He went ballistic. I just have to be flicking.
Well, I guess he needs to do a history lesson and see where Brock Lesnar put him over in 30 seconds or a minute when he came back the last go round. So, I mean, Goldberg's a mystique. I mean, to me, he's a Sting level, career impact player in the business, and all the things he's done outside the business, and the fact that he's still fit and in shape, and he's not pretending he's still 30 years old or anything, but his contributions are always going to go down in the history books.
Yeah,
so,
they really are.
So, I mean, it's a work. Who gives a flying flip why you do anything? Doesn't make sense why you made Cody look like a fool at WrestleMania either, but they did it.
Yeah,
it's a work. So,
and I think from a kayfabe standpoint, it can make sense because, Goldberg was insulted by Gunther at Bad Blood in Atlanta. Down, and not only that, but Goldberg has a track record. He's a future WWE Hall. He's a WWE Hall of Famer, legitimate. Mm-hmm. And so he doesn't need to go through several matches or to prove himself to I think get that title shot. It would just be like, say if this is just a way hypothetical, like John Bones Jones, and Conor McGregor build himself up to fight John Bones. That's a money match. That's a money fight. And so this is a money fight. I think that's all really.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I played football with his brother at the University of Minnesota.
Wait, with Goldberg's brother?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I didn't tell you that before.
You might have. That's crazy. Really?
Yeah. He was a tackle, offensive tackle, Mike Goldberg.
I had no idea. Wow,
yeah. That was his brother. But they were good. Well, he was a very good football player too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh man.
He didn't quite have the intensity though that his brother. I
don't think a lot of people do.
No. He's phenomenal, and the people he relates to the people. I mean, they feel that energy.
Yeah.
And it's a match I can't wait to watch.
It's so funny too because you see online and everybody's crapping on it. And I'm like, this is a money match. And everybody's like, oh, look at what AEW, because that same weekend All In is taking place, AEW All In. And so they have all the, the athletes of Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega, Swerve Strickland, you name it. They have all that going on. And it's a perfect counter program to have for it is Goldberg versus Gunther because it's not like any of that other stuff. No. So it's name cachet, and it'll all be about the spectacle of it all too, which I'm excited for. I'm really excited. I love Goldberg.
I do too. How's
Yeah.
AEW doing?
And like I said, I do hope at the end of the day, I mean, I know it's touted as Bill's retirement match, but I mean, I really hope it further elevates Gunther, however they go about doing it, whatever the finish is. You know, I hope it can, because he is the future, you know, period. He's the best Moneyball player in the bullpen that, you know, needs to be getting geared up to battle. I don't know who. I don't know whether it's Cody down the road or they, you know, I don't know what's going on with Roman or who, but they've got to, you know, somebody's got to turn up the notch, because I think Cody did a heck of a job.
Oh yeah.
You know, that year, his run with the title, way above and beyond even what I thought he was capable of doing.
Yeah.
I thought he quarterbacked the, you know, the organization, took that lead, did all the things that you do as the face of the company. And again, you know, I'm sure he could still do all those things, but it's not the same marquee impact as you have carrying the title.
Right.
So, you know, I'm interested to see what's next. I'm sure the people that own the company are wanting to see what's next too, because they've got $1 bajillion invested in this thing, and it seems to kind of be a little, you know, a little wishy-washy at the moment.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very interesting. Following up, so CB says this: if Goldberg wins the World Heavyweight Championship at Saturday night's main event, will it kill Gunther's WWE run like it did with The Fiend losing the Universal Championship to Goldberg? Magnum, what do you think of that? Is there a world
Absolutely. He does not need to drop the title to Goldberg at all in any way, shape, or form. They could have some kind of wild DQ. They could do something to get Goldberg's hand up. That belt needs to stay right around the waist of Gunther.
Yep.
100%.
You agree, Greg? Mm-hmm. So I made an argument to where Goldberg could win, and this was my perspective on it. Now I'll get your take. You can trash it. Feel free to trash it, but this was my take. Was if he were to win the World Heavyweight Championship when it got reintroduced, Seth Rollins was the inaugural champion, but it still felt like a second fiddle title. And I think a lot of people associate the World Heavyweight Championship with the big gold, obviously, of WCW days. And obviously Goldberg held that. The argument I made is if he could win it, it would almost indirectly tie the lineage of what you had with the history of that belt and add to it a little bit more. So that was an argument I made for maybe Goldberg to potentially win that title, but I don't know if you feel a certain way about it.
And you can do anything. I think they just rebuilding. You know, Gunther now coming off of the Jey Uso deal, and whatever they do needs to be, you know, steadily climbing up. I mean, I'd like to see him get Jacob Fatu hot and let him have a battle with him, because he's he's really the wild card out there that could go linear. The guy can talk, he can work, he can do it all. And you know, if you're gonna turn somebody on, turn him on, and let him and Gunther have some battles.
Yeah,
he's not gonna put that big chop over. That big chop is not gonna phase the werewolf.
What if they had
eat those chops?
Well, what if Goldberg won the match and said he's retiring? Now they have a tournament for the title.
Still hurts him.
Still hurts. Yeah, it would hurt Gunther, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just I don't see how you can not beat him with Goldberg coming out of retirement. But if you do, it's going to be, you've pretty much destroyed Gunther, I think. I don't know if you could get him back in the position where you need him.
I think, because in my head, and maybe it's just me being a biased mark for Goldberg since I was a kid, but I would always just think Gunther is I think you could survive losing to Goldberg, and you could make something, tell a further story. But I do think already, to Magnum's point, they've already had some hiccups, I think, with Gunther when it comes to like how they handled him in between his loss to Jey Uso and now. And
it was a terrible finish.
Yes.
To tap out of his own finish.
Yes.
Was just terrible. It's like, it reminds me of it when Bill Watts came to WCW, and Vader was hotter than flipping hot. I mean, he was a monster. You know, he was the champion. He was everything. And Bill came in and got this idea of making, Ron Simmons the first, first black world's heavyweight champion, which is a great thing to do, but the timing was just all wrong the way they went about doing it. They took all the heat off of, off of Vader, and Vader was in such a strong place where they could have had back then we worked programs that could last 6 months, 8 months. Yep. But they were so interested in, hot shotting something and getting all the bigwigs excited about, this great thing that they were doing that had never been done before, and weren't thinking about the longevity effect of what it meant with what had already been invested in this big monster heel. And they never got, and Vader was never the same.
Yeah.
After the deal. And Gunther, he came out, was great on the interview, and it was great that he said, Jay, you were better that night. He didn't make excuses about it. You were better that night, but that was one night.
Yeah.
And not going to happen again. And he handled it perfectly.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to be having to do that for a long time.
Yeah. I think that's a very fair counterpoint. I get it. We have a couple more questions in here too. Let's see if they pertain to you. I want to make sure they all tie into anything. Triple E just says wins and losses only matter if it's part of the story. It's just Goldberg wanting to have that last match, putting over young talent as he retires. Yeah. So it doesn't, they have not billed this as Goldberg's last match. And if you saw his shirts and stuff like that, or the promotion for his merchandise, it says Goldberg's last ride. So this might not potentially be his last match, but there might be more to come for Goldberg after the fact, to your point, Magnum. So if they could do some sort of schmozzy kind of finish almost for this on Saturday night's main event and continue with Goldberg with somebody else outside of Gunther. So love to see him up against Braun Breaker. I think that would be a great last match.
I want him. He was just such a monster.
Yeah.
And obviously, he's fit and he's in great shape again for his age. But, we want to remember that 290-pound Goldberg, flipping, fire out of his nostrils and, intense and a monster. Nobody wants to remember somebody, anything less than their grandest version of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, there's very few people that find that graceful exit. I think Randy Orton will be able to do it. He looks better than he's ever looked in his entire career.
Yes.
But you don't want to see, the aging, I can still go out there and do it guy.
Yeah.
That looks like a shadow of his former self, no matter what skill sets he still possesses. It's not like you're going to lose them, but it's all a theater. It's all the look. I mean, nobody wants to see, we want to see Charles Bronson, who back in the day had this great chiseled physique, taking his shirt off to fight somebody, without that rugged look.
Right.
And that goes for Clint Eastwood or anybody. You want these icons, you want them to remember them like they were, bigger than life. And I think it really, really taints it. And it used to be like the exception. I mean, I remember sitting around looking and saying, man, why are these guys still doing it? Now I realize some guys didn't have any other choice. They didn't have any other way to make a living. There was no plan B, anywhere out there. But, that's why I wanted out, early. I've said this to Greg several times and to my dying breath. I mean, my plan was to be out. I had 3 more years on the deal, and then, let somebody else run around and play Superman or BBDs. It wasn't. It's just stupid.
Well, as many matches as you were going a year, I can't blame you wanting to get out.
Right.
So you went 7 years? So
I was in 7 years, and I would have been at 10
years. You wanted to be out.
Yeah, because like I said, I wanted to drive, Winston Cup.
NASCAR.
And I knew I could do that for 10 more years without beating and battering my body up. Else I'd run head onto a wall or something. But again, I always envisioned, that just like I envisioned boxing and everything else. A man reaches his peak potential strength at about 32 years old, and that's just a fact of life. I mean, people defy, logic and stay looking great, today longer than they ever have. And of course, they're doing something to get a little help to look like that. But even though they look like that, doesn't mean they can go do what they did at 30 years old and walk away from it. It may look like $1 million on the outside, but it means you're going to go out there and be banging it up on a gridiron or in a boxing ring or on a wrestling match or whatever. It's aesthetics and being able to be a gladiator are two different things.
Yeah. Yeah. How much of it's window dressing and how much is it? Can you still?
Well, Kevin Nash said that to me one time. I told him how great he looked. I saw this is. Kevin's and I were like the same age, and he's always taking care of his body. But he was telling me, he said, if you can see it on the inside, the joints and the this and the that and the other that are about to fall apart. It's a facade.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Kev always tries to stay active. Hey, speaking of Magnum, I saw on X that MVP tweeted out something that he got to sit at a table with you, JBL, and I think another, and it was all United States champions. Was this recently this happened or something like that? Do you recall?
It had been a while back.
Okay. Because I was like, wow, that's really fascinating. And I was curious if that happened over this past weekend or something like that. But
I haven't made an appearance anywhere in a minute, and next thing I'm doing is here in Charlotte in August, the event they have.
Oh, the gathering?
Annually at a gathering.
Yeah.
It's in my backyard. I'd be crazy not to go, but yeah, my days of traveling far and wide to go sit on a steel chair for 8-10 hours at a time are probably my rearview window. I as much as I enjoy seeing the fans, the sheer Iron Man side of you need to do that for that length of time is just
it's tough.
It's too much.
I've got one. I got one coming up in July too, and I'm really reluctant, but it's not too far from home. So,
well, that's different,
Yeah,
and even that's still kind of a task.
Oh yeah, and I had a guy call me the other day from Nebraska, wanted me to come down, and I said, "Hey, brother, I'll come down, but it's gonna.
Well,
you might not like the fee."
It gets to be at a point in time where it's not even just about the money. I mean, the money's great. They'd have to throw something absolutely stupid at you. But, I'm at a stage in my life where I feel bad for the fan. I feel bad for the fact that they, walk through, see, people, whatever, and they can't even get you to get your John Hancock on a piece of paper for less than $40.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
And I mean, and that's peanuts compared to what other people spend and do and whatnot. But it's, I know, it's been a blessing to my family many, many times when I've gone to these things and brought back a pocket full of money that I wouldn't be able to make otherwise. But when I flip-flop it around and think about how much these people really cared and really enjoyed what you did, I wish there was some kind of benevolent society that would pay us to come to those things and the fans could get it for free. because they deserve it. I mean, they really do. They've come out. They've been diehard, about supporting and sharing their memories of what they grew up around. Their aunts and uncles and dads and granddads and all the things that just come instantly to their memory when they see you that it cues off. And maybe I'm, like I said, maybe some switch has gone off in my head, but it's almost embarrassing to me to take somebody's money after they share such a intimate part of their life about how you positively impacted it. And, thank you very much. And cha-ching.
Yeah. It's part of it.
I've got a problem with that too. And I'm really torn on this, where they want me to go. It's not too far from home. It's only about an hour. But they don't want to pay. They don't want to pay. I pay you up front. They give you a little bit on this one. And then you want, you charge for your stuff. I don't like charging for my stuff.
Yeah.
these kids, and young people, they've heard about you and they want an autograph. Give them a freaking autograph.
That's
you know.
it.
But
I mean,
they said no. I mean, it's a fair, and they want me to charge.
And so you earn a little bit. I'm grabbing my charger real quick.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's frustrating.
Well, it's the times we live in. You go to the store and you used to come home with 10 bags of groceries for X number of dollars, and now you spend in a month at the grocery store what used to be your house payment. And they keep saying the economy is moving in the right direction, everything else, and maybe I'm not in the right economic zip code to understand it, but it doesn't seem to be working out great in my house.
We had one meal, half a bag of groceries. It's some other stuff with it. It was $62.
Oh my gosh!
We got to go back again the next day. I said, Laura, this is insane.
Well, it does. You can go through a drive-through and buy a couple sandwiches and some French fries cheaper than you can make something at your own house.
Yeah.
Right. It's
I went today. She wanted to stop and have lunch. She went to this place out on the lake here, and I had a rice bowl with chicken, and she had a chicken sandwich. $75 frickin' dollars.
How much was it?
$75.
What?
And then she says, "What are we going to do tonight?" I said, "I don't know. I'm not going to eat.
I'm gonna eat some ramen."
God, well, should we go somewhere? I said, "What do you mean go? Spend $75 for lunch."
No drinks? Did you get drinks?
I had water.
Oh,
she might have had a glass of wine, but a chicken sandwich and French fries, and I got a rice bowl with chicken.
Dang.
$75 frickin' dollars.
Holy smokes!
You need to come down to North Kakalaki. You live in 2 hours.
Go somewhere.
Gotta go somewhere.
Oh yeah, and then we're having trouble. The leasing, my lease was up, and I told the guy, we're staying. It's not. There's a lot of things wrong here, and he has to fix it up.
Yeah. So
we're looking at places, and $3-4 grand a month to go into a townhouse. Yeah.
Wow.
Guy called me up today, and he says, "Well, I've got one here for you. It's one level, walk-in shower, 2 bedrooms." And I said, "Well, what is it a month?" $3,800.
My God.
And I said, "Now, you know what? I'm gonna have to pass, buddy."
Yep, that's a no for me, dog.
Yeah, I'm trying to save. I've got money, some investments that I put away that we can go take some, like my son said, to go on vacations, go to take Laura to the places.
Yeah.
Put your money that way. But the cost of living, I'm going through. I'm saying, Jesus. And she's, "Well, where are we going?"
What do we find a reasonable price?
Well, we get a job. And she's 75 and I'm 76. We can't be working.
You guys look great, though. You guys really do.
Oh shit. The body feels 110.
Well, Magnum, to your point though about going to, that's such a nice thing to say though too, is like, because those fans I'm sure share those stories, and like you do feel like weird. I would feel weird too, but like, all right, well, $40, nice talking to you. But I guess it is the fans expect that though too at the same time, and
I get back to just our conversation in life and talking about where wrestling was always the escape.
Yeah,
and again, during the Great Depression and during hard times in America, you could always go down to the wrestling show and get a couple tickets and popcorn and a drink and be transported on this magical tour and forget about what's going on in life and could afford to do it. It was affordable entertainment. So I just don't get the proportionate, just crazy entrance level fee just to be able to enjoy this mode of entertainment today. And there's more of it available you know, and it'd be one thing if you didn't see such a great product on television.
Right.
And if you had to go to the arenas to see that feud settled or see what happened next in this saga. But because you can just click a channel and see it and record it and watch it better and hear all the commentating and see all the great camera angles, I don't get the excitement about seeing it live, because I think we talked about it one time here before. I went to a WWE event and I sat back like what would have been the 50-yard line to be able to see. Had a pretty good panoramic view of the show, and it was like ho hum. But I came home and watched it on TV a couple hours later, and watched it with all the editing and all the mixing and all the things they did. It was like I was watching a whole different event.
Yeah,
and it was really fantastic. But back to my point, why do you want to go leave the comfort of your home, shell out all the money, buy gimmicks and gadgets and gizmos that they're selling, and spend everything that you would have used to spend to go to Walt Disney World for a week?
Yeah.
Well, here's when the Timberwolves playing Oklahoma.
Right.
So my son-in-law, he likes to go to the games.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get tickets. And Laura's sister got some tickets. Her and her husband, he sold something to Target and loaded. $1,200 a ticket.
My gosh.
Two tickets, they got $2,400.
Holy smokes.
They were nice enough to give it to him, but
man,
I wouldn't pay $1,200 to $1,200 to see anything.
No, geez.
Maybe a few girls dance, something like that.
That'd be more interactive, Greg, I think.
Yeah.
More immersive of an experience. It's
out of hand.
The bubble's going to burst at some point.
It's got to.
When it comes to WWE and stuff, it's good they're making all this money and it's successful and everything to that effect. But you're really disassociating yourself from the fans further by pricing them out a little bit more. Yep. And like what Magnum was just saying too, how universal pro wrestling has been over the course of history and time, American history and Americana potentially. And it's just, you don't want to see that go away. And, I think there's going to be where the rubber hits the road here at some point, where it's going to
what does it cost to get in like an MLW show or something like that?
So that's like they're pretty reasonable. It's like $20. Tickets start at $20 and then they go up from there. So and that's a more intimate experience because of their smaller venues and stuff. So those are definitely much more reasonably priced when it comes to TNA. I'm not sure how much the TNA events are, but I'm sure those are a lot more reasonable too at this juncture. And people are paying and doling out the cash for some of this stuff at this moment in time, but it's going to get with the way the economy's been going, what you guys been saying about the groceries and everything at the same time, it's not all going to pan out like that.
And again, I think it's fantastic that there's guys making millions of dollars and those things. That's fantastic. But I don't know how many people. I don't know, between the roster at WWE, NXT, and AEW, I don't know how many people that encompasses. You got any idea how many people are employed between those groups?
Yeah.
I would have to. It's got to be. I would have to. Oh my gosh, you try to think about that. I would say roughly over 300. Right? Does that seem like too high or too low?
Seems low.
It seems like it's probably pretty accurate. And when you go back to the 80s and think about how many people there were making a living, steady living with all the territories, that's probably about half of what there was 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Now they're making crazy cool money and all that stuff, but it's not supporting the kind of growth that it could be supporting, and your likelihood of getting in. Even back then, and Greg will tell you. You weren't going to. I don't care what kind of athlete you were or anything else. You weren't going to walk into the business even back then, whether you played in the NFL or whatever you did. It wasn't a gimme. You were just going to get in the wrestling business. And today, is even worse. So, it's tougher for kids today to have that dream than it was 40 years ago.
Right. Oh man. Yes, it is. It's just, and that's the other aspect that everybody's going to be going up against too, is there is so many talent and there's so many names out there that how does one certain one feel special? How do you make that feel special? And that not only comes down to the person itself, but how you're promoted and booked and stuff like that too. And the competition, it's a lots of fish in a big pond too at the same time.
Well, you look at Karrion Kross and his wife. They're like two mega talented, individuals working for the biggest organization on the planet, and somebody, saw something in them to bring them back, but they're still not being put in any needle moving type position, and her personality has not been utilized in any way, shape, or form at all. And so when you look at a guy with all the skill sets, the mic skills, the in-ring skills, and everything else, and the package, think, man, this guy can't get a break. That's got to make you check your whole card and say, what makes me think they're gonna? What is it about me that makes me going to be so marketably different that they're gonna? Somebody's going to put a rocket on my rear end and give me a chance.
Right. Karrion Kross, he's awesome. I love him, and I think he's got a good look. They're giving the moments he's taking, he's making the most of. But yeah, it's like that. They're a 1-2 punch carrying Scarlett together. It
looks like they're going in a direction with him and Sami Zayn,
which I think should be good, and hopefully that will be the moment where they break out.
But like TA says, this guy's got a lot of talent, and they're not utilizing it.
Right.
And I don't know, back in the day, it was some promoters just didn't like a personality, and they wouldn't push them, even though they could probably make them money, or they didn't know how to utilize them to make them money. And maybe that's what's happening with Kross, that they don't know what to do with them or how to do it.
Well, without the arena business part of the equation in the model, you could utilize. I mean, the Crockett's had 200 guys working just for them.
Wow.
In the 80s, I mean, 200 wrestlers on board just for the Crockett's. So, you say, oh well, and then you look at the hours of television, but when you translate all those bodies into arena, and 2 and 3 different arenas a night, and you're telling stories in the arena that you're programming to come back in and carry on, it doesn't take much of a little zip on television to keep it ignited for them to want to go back and see the rest of the story in the arena. But now that they play it all out in this airtime thing, is cut down all those opportunities to, probably come back full circle for Solid, because somebody in their brilliance will say, gee, we could be generating, X, Y, and Z, and making it where you got to come to the building to find out what happens next, because we're not going to tell it to you on television.
Yeah.
We'll tell you about it after the fact, and you're going to be ticked off that you didn't go down there where you could have seen it happen live. Wow, what a concept.
You know what? To that point, right? To that point too, you think about how society and civilization is right now when it comes to, hey, everybody, it's so easy access. Everything's at your fingertips. You can go and watch and check it out on television, see it all, cover it all. You don't have to leave your home. Well, I think human nature is human interaction. So eventually, at some point or another, people are going to be wanting to go get an experience. And I think we're kind of seeing that a little bit with concerts now too. It's like, that's getting a little bit more, I think, more eyes on it, promotion, people going out to shows and stuff like that and getting that more experience. So I think that's a really great point. You could definitely see that happening, I think, with wrestling especially. But yeah, somebody's got to be on the ball at having reasonable ticket prices. Get ahead of that game first.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll take a couple questions here before closing out. This is a follow-up from last week, Greg. Dougie Fisher says, Greg, a follow-up from last episode. Was there any ever discussion of bringing Flair back home to Minneapolis, a teacher-student angle with Vern, or who was the best a class with 72 with you? Was there any idea to try to get that, or was Flair just off of the...
Well, yeah, Vern, like you said, Brenzo went down to Kansas City for a while, then he went to Charlotte, then he came back. Rick was supposed to go down. I think he went to Charlotte, and then I think he was going to go down to Eddie Graham and then come back. Well, he never got out of Charlotte.
Right.
So, I mean, there was no contract with the wrestler that you had to come back. Vern trained him, and he trained him, and he would train him and send him out. But, you go here, for a few months, learn from there, then you go there and learn, and you go there, and then you come back and you're ready.
Did Vern ever make the effort though after the fact, like when Flair was super successful, or was that just not in the cards? And Magnum, maybe you can speak to that too.
No, I mean he had TA and Flair in Chicago, trying to work together a little bit, but no, Rick was so solid in there and so solid with the NWA, he wasn't going to come back.
And I think back then those titles really meant something to us that were in it. The AWA loyalty, the NWA loyalty, the WWF organization. If you had it kind of ingrained in your DNA that you wanted to be the most successful in a particular stream, then it was kind of hard, in my mindset to widen that. I mean, it was like. I didn't have to think about it more than a little bit of time to go from Mid-South to the Crockett's. Even though we were on fire, I just looked at the potential. I knew that they were going to have the potential to put more juice in it, and I knew that we had peaked. Absolutely, when you're selling out everything you got, and you can see that there's not but so many more things you can do with this cast of characters you got, then you want a bigger playing field. And so like, even though I have respect for the AWA organization, it wouldn't have ever even been anything on my mind any more than the WWE, because I was laser focused on wanting that NWA title, that lineage, because I had grown up in that area, and that's all I'd known. And from the Harley races to the Dory Funks and Jack Briscoes, and those were the guys I knew. I knew of the other people because the wrestling mags, carried the pictures and stuff, but we didn't see the programming. So it taints you, gets you kind of interested, in pursuing a certain group. And I just didn't work real well north of the Mason-Dixon line. I was kind of a southern guy. And
I would have loved those trips up to North Dakota.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed going to other places and whatnot, but even in the fans like in Baltimore and Philly and New York were fantastic, but just the cultures were a little different, and it was a little bit different than what I was accustomed to in being, down Mid-South and across Texas and, San Antonio. And I'd worked the whole southern half of the United States, really, really hard. So that's something else now that I think back on it that, definitely played into my thought. I like to go visit the snow, but I didn't want to be around it.
Didn't want to be around it.
Nah.
Well, Meg, following up from last week, Greg and I talked about this. I asked Greg, because we were talking about the hypothetical of if like Greg and Flair had a program together, and NWA style or anything like that. But I asked Greg if he thinks he could have handled that NWA World Heavyweight Championship schedule that all those guys had through, from Dory Funk Jr. to Flair to Harley Race to Terry Funk for a little bit, you name it. Do you think you could have handled that schedule? Were you built for that, do you think? And that mentality?
Yeah. I could have done it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But again, I was only 26, 27 years old. And I had no, I had no vision past a certain point. And I knew that, back then, the champion, the NWA champion came in, he got 13% of the gate. 3% went to the NWA. Champion got 10% of the gate. Flair's first $100,000 a month was working with me, going all around everywhere selling out. And so to me, not only being recognized by your peers as somebody to be in that position to carry it, that was the most potential, because this is all before pay-per-view. We're all working off arena attendance only. So
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so in a month, Flair made $100,000 working with you. What did you come out of there with?
20 some.
20 some? Still, that's a great month.
Yeah.
Oh, I was making good money, but when you figure somebody is making 80% more than you, that you're in the ring doing the same time with, that was a big, because I knew unequivocally that I could make over $1 million a year just from arena gate attendance if I could get that belt.
Yeah.
So I was so motivated. You wouldn't have found me so easy to negotiate around back in those days as I have become in my more mature time. I was pretty lazy. I was pretty laser focused, and as intense as I came across on camera, I was just that serious about business too.
That's the way to handle it, though. That's why you're the boss, Magnum. That's it. Ripshot asked this, Greg. Greg, did Kevin Kelly and the Sheik break your cameras? Do you know what that means? Break your cameras. Is that a story that I'm missing?
I don't remember that.
I don't
ever remember breaking a camera.
Yeah. If you can follow up with that.
I mean, all the cameras were, the TV stations that we worked with in Minneapolis. I mean, WTCN. And if we'd have broken a camera, we'd have heard about it.
You're not kidding. That'd been a really, really bad thing.
That would be real bad stuff.
And they wouldn't have been there too long.
Nope.
Or put them to work until they paid it off.
That's it. Yeah, you got to do something like that. We did have a super chat that's easily answerable. But Instagram Wrestling Historian says, did Mr. Gagne and Magnum ever wrestle each other?
No.
Never happened. Instagram.
He was lucky.
Yes. Oh boy. Uh-oh.
I was lucky.
Oh.
Because I'd had Vernon mad at me for the rest of my life.
Oh boy. I love it.
No, I wish you could have had a match.
That would have been great.
No, I mean, I could work those styles, and I had some great matches with guys like Brian Blair and Brad Armstrong, and did you ever get to work with Brad Gregg? Was he ever around you?
No, I didn't.
Brad Armstrong was probably the best technical in-ring guy I ever worked with in my life.
Really?
He and I were tag partners for quite a while when I was in Florida. We had the global, I think it was called the Global Tag Team Championship, but he was so smooth. Everything he was like Ricky Steamboat on steroids. He was that smooth. He was that graceful in everything that he did. He just never got the opportunities that Ricky got.
Mm-hmm.
But he had more, he got labeled more because he really had that southern that southern talk and kind of regionalized.
Yeah.
And we did, but his fire, his execution, his timing. I've not been in the ring with anybody better.
Wow.
Yeah, you didn't get a chance to get in the ring with me.
You hear so many good things about Brad Armstrong.
I loved it. I used to love to have those kind of matches. When you had the two clean baby faces going at it.
Yeah, and a technical kind of
and getting the people really involved into it.
Right.
And it's really an art, because you have to get them involved into the personalities. They're already there, but now a clean match, how are you going to get them excited? And boy, you gotta work your butt off and be smooth and sell right and have that fire.
That would be the thing that would have turned me heel, though, because whenever I was in those matches, my natural inclination was always to do something, not to cheat, but just to get really physical, because I was annoyed. It was too scientific. I wanted to grab two handfuls of hair and smash them into the post. It was just for me, it was like a mouthful of sugar with oatmeal with no sugar.
Yeah.
It was at a place on the card, it can be golden, but in a main event,
it could be a main event if
you could do it. But I'm saying, if I were to been in that situation, it would have been very hard for me to play by the what we set out to do.
Yeah.
You know what it was? It took time. You had to build it, and it usually took about 20 minutes to really get. Now you got the people involved. Now you got them really going. Mm-hmm. They're not sure. And that's really an art to be able to do that.
Oh, it is.
I like TA in there, and you're going to blow up and run me into the ring post. Shit, blowing the whole thing.
No, but I would, and it was, and I was good. I was mentally satisfied with that when I was in Florida, and even when I was in Mid-South. It wasn't until I worked that program with Tully that the real violence in what I enjoyed portraying came out. And I realized that I really didn't give a flying flip about being able to throw an arm drag or nothing. I had this thing because, again, he and I were going 20 and 30 minutes every night, and there wasn't 2 minutes of holes in the whole darn thing.
Right.
And it was, and he was in such incredible cardiovascular shape that he could carry that pace wide open for 20 minutes. And it wasn't ever anything we talked about, but it was to that point. If he was approaching me, I knew there was X, Y, and Z could happen. And he knew the same thing about me, and we just did it. And again, that was kind of the evolution. That's where I think, I think that's what prepared me for what I did with Nikita, because you couldn't have a scientific nothing with Nikita. That wasn't even I tried when I first came to the territory to have this kind of matches with him and Ivan. Dick Slater and I had tag matches with them, and they were horrible.
Just not it.
And they were absolutely horrible. But then later, when we got in the feud and him and I 1-on-1, and there was an angle, it was intense, and it was really, really good. And we went, him and I, in that best of 7 series thing that went more than 7. We had several matches that went over 45 minutes, and just flipping brutal. So it's the AWA was built understanding and on the kind of matches that they had seen, that finesse skill set all the way back to like the Luthez and his dad, and that kind of thing. And the brawling thing, you had the Butcher, you had Mad Dog, and you had those different guys. Yeah. That was just kind of their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
We didn't have every match. Don't get me wrong, like what I'm portraying here, but I enjoyed that so much. I had gone out of that lane so far, by the time I was, coming off that thing and in the matches with Jimmy Garvin, that I didn't even look like the same character that from 3 years earlier. I watched some of the old footage that comes across here once in a while on YouTube from Florida Championship Wrestling, and I just laugh because I only been in the business about a year when I was there, but I was, the little smiley baby face, guy, but I had that fire and that intensity. I remember Barry one time said, you don't need to be that intense with, when you got a job guy in the ring, you want to be, but I was that way. It didn't matter if I was fighting a Chihuahua or a giant. I had that.
Yeah, that
same thing, and took me a while to figure out how to harness it, but that was that's how I was able to draw money.
Yeah,
and if I didn't do an interview where it looked like lightning bolts were coming out of my eyeballs when I was cutting the promo, Dusty thought I was asleep. He didn't want anything else, but no gas, no brakes.
That's it.
We had babyface tag team matches. Against Martel and Tito Santana.
Oh wow! So
I bet they were awesome.
Yeah.
And we were in San Francisco, the Cow Palace. That was a big open building. And we wrestled 40 minutes. And it took 20 minutes to get the people really into it. And then the next 20, we just had them going. And it's an unbelievable feeling because, it's not that where you have to make that comeback and that fire. And you still show the fire, but it's not that violent fire that you have to have with the heel.
Right.
And we had that one there, and then we had another with them in Denver, and same thing. We just had the people standing. And I mean, it's such a feeling to know that you were able to control them, and it took time. I mean, you go out there in the first 20 minutes, you got people going, boring. And then that all of a sudden it turns over, and pretty soon the ones that were yelling boring, you get them up on their feet.
Yeah.
That's when you know you really, really did your job.
Boy, that's got to be a satisfying feeling.
Oh, it is. It is. And then when you come back to the locker room, I mean, everybody is, giving you congratulations for hanging in there.
Heck yeah. Oh, no doubt about it.
On a completely different note, so Rob Van Dam's going to be a dad.
Going to be a dad. That's right. He announced it.
And how old is Rob?
I think he's 54.
So he's going to follow my path.
He is. Yes.
So I had twins at 50. Wow. So I know what he's got ahead of him.
All right. What dad advice can you give him, Magnum?
I'll have to reserve that for a one-on-one.
Okay.
But no, congratulations to him when you talk to him.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm really happy for those guys.
I'll see him tonight, so I'll be sure to let him know.
We said congratulations.
Absolutely. Okay, hell yeah.
You still got it, brother.
You still got it. RVD still got it, man. 5-star, man. 5-star.
I'm 76, and I'm still getting it too. So
there you go, rocking and rolling. We'll give a couple shout outs here. Some people just wanted to commend you guys. Tammy and Tommy says, I'm a girl. Greg Gagne and Magnum TA got me started watching wrestling at the age of 10. So awesome to hear that. We also have Near Death say Greg Gagne is a legend. Pale Horse OG says Magnum TA, man, one of my childhood wrestling idols. Hope you're doing well, sir. I live in Roanoke, Virginia. You guys were in our area, and Greensboro a lot. Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Charlie, too, who's a regular in the chat as well. And Triple E, obviously, giving some great comments. Really appreciate everybody tuning in, and more stuff to come. I'll be sure to star some of these other questions, too, that we didn't get to today. And we'll cover a lot more here. We'll do a next Q&A next week and stuff.
Good enough. We'll do a lot of question and answer.
Question and answer are fun ones, and I love it when we dive into the history in your guys' careers, the stories that you guys share. So, Megan, anything you want to talk Power Town-wise or anything in that regard?
I'm locked.
Locked on up. I like to hear it. So, yes. But
I'm locked too.
Greg's locked too. If the boss is locked, the facilitator is locked as well.
I've got to be. I can't even facilitate anymore.
Can't do that. You're handcuffed. Well, cool.
I get a little hot-headed.
That's not really, Greg. I don't believe that. Not you.
I try to. TA calms me back down.
That's it.
A couple times I can feel the energy in him coming up.
I believe it.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Well, we'll get there next week too. Probably Friday works for you guys. Does Friday work for you guys again? If we
think so.
Okay.
Oh, that's a week away.
That's a week away. Stay tuned. We'll let you guys know. But we appreciate everybody tuning in for Straight Talk with the Boss. More to come here. And be sure to subscribe and like Brass Ring Media. That's where you'll get all the clips, the full episodes, and anything like that. And be sure, if you want to hear us podcast-wise, go to Four Horsemen Network. Type that in your podcast feed, and we'll be on that as well. So be sure to give us 5 stars and rate us there too. But some good feedback, and looking forward to chat with you guys next week again. So
thanks again. Nice job, Dom, as usual.
Thank you. Yes. We'll see you next time on Straight Talk with the Boss. That's Magnum TA, and that's Greg Gagne. All right, guys.